Hey everyone, welcome to Sir Inc.'s The Experience podcast, where we talk about anything and everything kink. We only cater to adults 18 and above, so remember this podcast is not safe for work, or as we like to say, NSF.
Remember, you can always listen to us in your private time. Hello, kinky and kink-curious folk out there. My name is Sir Inc. And in this podcast, I'm going to discuss with you an article that I came across on Reddit. So the article goes like this. I'm really concerned about men's mental health. I'm a mental health therapist, female that's 48, who has jumped back into the dating males after a 10-year hiatus. I've met a few men, taken some time to get to know them, and dang, usually about a month into getting to know these guys, I'm hearing phrases like emotionally dead inside and unable to understand my own or others' feelings. They are angry and irritated at the core of their emotional lives, and they have very low levels of positive emotion. I feel so horrible for them when they disclose these things to me. It's very sad. I like to think that my sample size is low, and that my observations cannot be generalized to the entire heterosexual male population. But my gut tells me otherwise. I think there is a male mental health crisis. Your mental health does matter, and I wish I could fix it all for every one of you, and I can't. Edit. Yes, the mental health system is completely overwhelmed. I know it's difficult in the first place to reach out for help, only to find wait lists and costs that are way out of hand in most places. Keep trying. Community health centers usually have sliding scales and people to help get access to insurance. Okay, so I have several thoughts in this, and I'm going to start by saying, being a 49-year-old male, and I've lived life. I've had multiple relationships, of course, like any normal person that has been just married for a long time or married right out of high school. I've been in and out of some relationships, and I think what happens, I've only had about a good 3 serious relationships, in my time since, I would say, my 20s until now, which I was married just about all my 30s. So I think what happens for men, some men, let me say that, is the repetition of life. And then it's the reality of what relationships are. And it's the reality of the nature of women that can sometimes wear you down. And why does it wear you down? It wears you down because of your fantasy of what women were and your fantasy of how you think relationships are supposed to be. And then you have to deal with your own responsibility in the relationship and how maybe you did too much or didn't do enough. Or you did the right amount and it still didn't work out. And so you start going through this process of in and out of different relationships, breakups, painful stuff, and all that. And you learn more about yourself. And what happens is when guys get older, they're not as attractive as they once were. They're not attractive to the type of women that they think they should have. And here's another part to that. They haven't even had the kind of sex that they would really like to have. A lot of guys are not having the kind of sex that they would like to have. So that emotionally, kills a dude. You know what I mean? Because men do not look at love the same way women do. Men find sex as a form of love. It's a form of adoration. It's a form of a desire that a woman has for us as men. And there's a lot of guys living in relationships or have been in relationships where they were denied sex. And that is a very, very cruel act to deny a man sex. And I don't mean just of your body, but of the ability to even have sex with someone else if you're not putting out. Like, if you're not putting out, I don't know why he should sit on his ass and not be fulfilled. And I'm going to say the same thing for women. Like, if your dude does not want to have sex with you, and I've heard women be in relationships, married relationships, where their husbands flat out just does not want to have sex with them. I mean, they might have sex once a year, twice a year. I mean, what is a person to do with that? I mean, we're all human beings, but men depend on the sexual part as much as women depend on the emotional part of the relationship. Women depend on the emotional part of the relationship, more so sex, whereas the men are more physical. We depend on that more than emotion. Now, both sexes have both in us, right? We both love sex. The average person likes to have sex. Males like to have sex more. Females like the emotional part more. Males like the emotional part, but they're not going to be heavily invested as much in the emotional part if the physical part is absent. And so when I had to create a poll about this, like, let me ask Gen X, because this is Gen X. This is my generation. Let me ask the Gen X what they think, and just men, what they think about this topic. And I would say this, another thing that I think about, I also think about what our generation was supposed to be about. And you grow up hearing this stuff in high school, you start feeling like I'm part of this generation. Heard about the baby boomers, how awesome they were, and all that, and all their accomplishments. And as being an African American, you know that a lot of people have overcome certain hurdles for our school, going to college, really forging their way into the corporate world and just in the world of business and have a lot of success. So we're dealing with all that, and we're supposed to be that next generation that propels us to the next stratosphere. And for the most part, we have done, a good job. But as far as relationships, I think we strayed further apart from one another because everybody is so goal oriented. I think many of us didn't really understand what it is to be a family, what it is just to have a healthy relationship. And you guys know, if you listen to any of my podcasts, I believe that men have not taught to be truthful. And it's not that they're not taught to be truthful by their fathers. They may not be held accountable amongst their friends. Because it's just like your kids. Like your kids, they hear you, but they really don't think what you're telling them really is valid to them in a situation in the moment. So they all roll with their peers. Now, the one thing you hope is that one of their peers has a father like you in their life, or an older gentleman that's giving them good game, that they actually listen to and live their life by, and actually bring that to the group and help elevate the group up. Hopefully you have a couple of them guys, right? At least when I was growing up, I had a bunch of friends when I got into high school, and I had to say that some of us were from single parent homes, some of us mothers remarried, and there's several of us who had both their parents in the house. But we had a good understanding of how men are. And then we held ourselves accountable to those standards, and we grew. Even through some immature stuff, we were never off. My core group of friends, fathers and no fathers, are really at the core, really great dudes. They're like men, not, these half of dudes, these, real men. But even with that being said, I can't even say that any of the guys that I know have not had sex in a relationship, or they've been in relationships where their girlfriends have withheld sex. And that's something that's very personal, and some guys may not speak on it, but like as close as we are, some guys would have mentioned it. Like there's actually one guy I know right now who's not having a level of sex he would like. but his wife is going through menopause. So that's a different situation. Matter of fact, I got a few friends like that. And I actually dated a girl who went through menopause. I mean, it's a very tough time. It's trying, it can be a strain on a relationship through mood swings, so on and so forth. So, a woman in her late 40s dating men, I have to think that they're at least her age or a little older. So they're in their 40 range and maybe a little older. They feel that way. They've been through some relationships, like maybe being with someone who's gone through the change and, the emotional strain and lack of sex that can bring about. There's many factors, and I'm not pushing it off on just, like it's a woman's fault, none whatsoever. But I think guys do not talk about it enough amongst one another to be able to really hash that thing out. I remember talking to Curious Girl, and she was saying, she gets so many guys calling up like, how do I get my wife to give me a blowjob? We've been married for 20 years, or we've been married for 10 years, and we're not having the kind of sex that we like. I mean, I'm not getting my dick sucked and things like that. And her and I always say like, damn, like, how you not getting your dick sucked? Like, why doesn't your wife want to suck your dick? Like, it's kind of crazy. And maybe it's just because of the kind of heathens we are, right? We just believe if I'm laying next to somebody, or if you're my woman, or dude, you should want to fuck me. Like, you want to be with somebody that wants to have sex with you. And I think, when the sex checks out to a degree, and I'm not laying it all on sex, but when the sex checks out, men become very detached. Very detached. And then when they detach, when sex is detached, emotionality just bottoms out, because a man is saying like, because I'm still dealing with the same issues, but I'm not even getting any pleasure. So I'm dealing with everything that I've been dealing with, maybe a little bit more and less sex. That just is not a conducive situation for a man. And let me just go straight to the dudes. Let's go absent the issues with the woman. People have had childhood traumas. People deal with, lack of confidence. Men do. And lack of confidence can be what they look like in their mid age, physique and all that, dealing with low testosterone, dealing with maybe some issues at work. Maybe he's hit a ceiling and he's frustrated because he can't go no higher, and maybe that is also a result of bringing that kind of energy to a relationship. Whereas though you could be with a good woman, but because you don't feel high about yourself, you bring a bunch of bull crap to the table as emotional emptiness, and you make the object about a woman because that's easy. But really it could be about you, the dude. It could really be about you, the guy that's struggling. And so there's many factors. And this is why we always encourage, like, y'all guys got to really talk to somebody. You really got to talk to somebody. You really have to talk to somebody, because you shouldn't be walking around wound up like this again. And not to bring no tragedy to it, but, we just saw a guy run into a crowd of people after having a domestic issue with his woman. And, guys can be ticking time bombs. People can be. And it's just imperative that we talk these things out. No matter what the case may be, whether it's you're not getting enough sex in your relationship, or you're not feeling like you're being emotionally nurtured in your relationship, and all that is connected together, or you feel like you're not bringing the finances to the table, so you feel like you don't deserve the woman that you have, so you create situations to push her away. And then after you've done that, you really don't want to be with anybody else because you don't feel adequate, not even for the next woman. You certainly don't want to go down and the quality of the woman you've been dealing with. So now any woman you get that's on the level, you don't feel as though you're good enough for it. Maybe because you feel as though, oh, maybe she's in corporate and you're not. And you feel like, oh man, wow, she want me. All this. I mean, guys can play, and people can play very wicked games on themselves when it comes to, their self-worth, their confidence. So there could be a lot of things in there. And again, guys, we need to really talk to somebody. Like I said, pick a stranger, pick a friend, just confide in somebody, or go hire a therapist. Go hire a therapist. You gotta have somebody that you can talk it out, or call up a help hotline, a suicide hotline. It's just as simple as that. Someone who can talk to you in a moment, no matter what you're going through. You may not be feeling suicidal, but there's hotlines that you can call for help, to discuss some things, and it's no good to be in your middle ages, in your 40s or in your 50s, and not being good enough to be in a relationship. And what I mean with being not have the ability to be emotional in a relationship. To say that you're emotionally empty, that's or you're just emotionally distanced. That's concerning, because relationships are about connection, and connection gets emotional, and all that stuff ties into sex and everything else. And so we need to talk those things out, because things that we put up as mental blocks may not be that deep, but we internalize it as that deep. And so let me know what you guys think. Please give me feedback. I think this is a topic that we really need to address as men. I think we wash it down with a lot of other things. We all throw a lot of other things up top. And in today's world, with everybody having an opinion and so many shows, you just have people on different sides where it's a blame game. It's the guy's fault, it's the ladies, the girls' fault. Women this, women that, men this, men that. And in the end, we really need to work on solutions of how we can be together harmonious. Even if you're in a relationship like a marriage where you live with someone every day, or you're in a long distance relationship, or whatever the case may be, is how to be present emotionally as a man. What does that look like? And I think that's a conversation that as a man growing up, you never really got from other men, is the teaching of how to be in a relationship. I've gotten that kind of information from my grandfathers before they passed. But not everybody has had those kind of fortunes that have those kind of men in their life. But, we have to be taught what we're feeling and how to navigate that, right? How to navigate feelings of inadequacy, how to navigate feelings of extreme jealousy, extreme rage. How do we compartmentalize this? How do we talk ourselves down? How do we deal with these kind of issues that will come up? Because relationships require you to bring your full self to the table. See, when you're with your friends, you can be one way. When you're at work, you can be another way. When you're over there at the PTA meeting, you can be another way. But when you come home, you have to be all those people. You have to be 100% authentic, and you have to be able to handle your business. And we have to get back into really teaching men, or not just teaching men. Let me not just say teach. Having a discussion with men so that they can understand how to think their way through certain situations. Therefore, they won't be emotionally empty people inside, because we need emotionally present men to help nurture our society and our families back to health, to have some kind of, unification, some continuity amongst our families, just our family with your kids, You have to be emotionally available. You cannot not be emotionally available, because if you're not emotionally available for a partner, you're probably not emotionally available for other aspects of your life. Kids, in some way, you're not giving your all to situations that deserve it. So, you guys know where to reach me. I want to thank you for listening. Again, Sir INQ on Instagram, Facebook. Come check me out on sirinc.com. You can also join our community at kingspace.net. And please give me your feedback, send me an email, send me a DM, anything to let me know if what I'm saying is in the ballpark or way off or what. Let's talk about it. This can be just part one of a bigger conversation. So until next time, peace.
That was quite an experience, wasn't it? Tune in again for a fresh release of Sir Inc's The Experience podcast.